Hi, my name's Keith Cooper of North Light Images, and in this short video I'm going to have a look at a monitor calibrator. This is a new version from Calibrite. Now the particular one I've got here is the Display Plus HL. This will calibrate high brightness displays, all kinds of displays. This basically allows me to calibrate anything I'm likely to come across. Now the software I'm going to be using is Calibrite's own software. The device itself is pretty similar to the old X-Rite devices, and I mean it says on it powered by X-Rite. It's the same stuff inside, but this one has some improved characteristics and works with the Calibrite software. Now there's a screw thread on the bottom of it which you can use if you're pointing this, if you're doing projectors and things, and this will cover just about any application you want as long as you've got the software running on your computer. Now the computer I've got here is an old iMac. Now this one used to belong to my mother, and I've kludged it a bit to install macOS Ventura or macOS 13 on it, the latest version. Not because I particularly wanted to use 13, I use older systems all the time on other machines, but I wanted something just so I could test updated stuff. Maybe one day if somebody sends me a winning lottery ticket, I'll have an M1 Mac here as well and we can try some stuff like that, but that ain't happening at the moment, so you get it tried on this. But I know that this works perfectly well on my main Mac, which is a souped up Power Mac. It works, I can use the older software I can use even on this old device here. This is an old MacBook Pro, which I normally use for when I'm doing the demos for showing this, but I use this for all kinds of other stuff. It's what's got an old system on it. No point in updating systems if it's going to mean you can't use the kit anymore, and it works fine. This is a 2010 PowerBook and it does what I want absolutely fine. Later this week I'll be taking it with me and I'll be using some X-Rite calibration profiling software to make paper profiles for a printer I'm going to be testing, not here. So I'll take that with me. All works just fine. But this is using the latest software. Now, the Calibrite software, which I've looked at before, eventually will handle all their products. Now, Calibrite is just the company that now covers the part of business that X-Rite used to cover. So there's a sort of hangover in from bits that you got from X-Rite that you now get from Calibrite. But this one, that's Calibrite. This particular one here, this is Passport, Video Passport, and this is the Calibrite version. I get people ask, if I've got one of the older versions of these, do I need to update? And the simplest thing I can say, if your old version works, and the software you've got for it works, and the new one doesn't bring in features that you need, then don't bother. That's not because the new one's not any good or anything like that. It's purely because why spend money on stuff you don't need to? I don't sell kit, as you can probably guess from most of my videos. I'm not interested in whether you buy them or not, but I'm interested in whether it works well, and this one does. Now, I've got the software here. The software I'm going to run the site is the Calibrite software. If I wanted to calibrate this monitor here, and this is a BenQ one, hardware calibrated monitor, I would not be using that. I'll use the BenQ software, but I'll do a bit of a discussion of that when I've profiled this, because also this one here, I'm going to assume it's going to look, unless I switch the white balance of the video over to this particular here, this room here is around about 4100K lighting. This monitor was hardware calibrated to 4000K so that it looks okay when I'm doing videos. That's probably why, as I'm talking here, this one looks much more neutral than this one, and this one should have a distinct bluish tinge. Now, I'm going to run through the calibration profiling on this, but I'm going to set this one, I'm going to do this to D65 or 6500K, typical settings. Unless you know why you need specific settings, start with the defaults in any software like this. Now, I'm not going to do a step-by-step sort of screen capture and things like this, because it looks slightly different on different systems, might look slightly different on a PC. And anyway, I'm always more keen on showing the principles of what I'm doing rather than a minutiae step by step. So I'm sorry, people who like step by step guides of screen recordings and things like that, you'll never get that sort of stuff from me. I'm concentrating far more on the why you do it and the how you do it rather than the step by step. It's incredibly easy software to use. You should be able to work this stuff out easily. It really is. Once you follow the basic principles, no trouble at all. Anyway, I've plugged this in. This is a USB device. Now, this has a USB-C socket on it. This has no USB-C sockets, but there is an adapter C to A, so that's what I've used to plug that in. Plug the device in, and I've got the software. Now, I've also got the BenQ software here for setting this up, but I'm not going to go through that in any detail, even though it does work perfectly well with this device. So, Calibrite Profiler. This is not the fastest of Macs. This is not for me to do work on, this is for me to show stuff. There we go. Now, the software here will detect what device you've got and will offer options appropriate to it. So it says here Calibrite Display Plus HL. So it has the sensor here, it knows the sensor and it's using it there. For the monitor settings, I've been through this software before as well. I've got another video. I'll put a link to the other video in case you want some more information on it. But the software here, I can have two modes of setting the monitor. I can do the basic mode, which is what actually will suit most people to start with, or the advanced mode. Now, with the advanced mode, if you know why you're adjusting something, feel free to adjust it. If you don't know why you're adjusting something, have a read of the information it gives, experiment as you wish. But in general, the default settings are there for a reason. Now, I'm going to just do the basic process on this. So I'm going to put it through to basic. I've selected that. Normally, I'd use the advanced mode because this monitor, I would normally calibrate down to 4000K. Now, this particular software doesn't calibrate to 4000K. It only goes down to 5000. Now, I've calibrated this to 4000. So for video use, I would use some different software on it for setting this up. But this is about normal use. Where I'm shooting these videos here with the lighting matched and things like that, these are not settings you would use for video editing and that. I've got another video I did recently looking at lighting, print lighting and stuff like that, which covers that in a bit more detail. But all I need to do, I've selected basic mode there. It picks up the type of monitor. It says iMac and it knows it says white LED. Now, I'm not entirely certain of what this is. I'm going to trust that it's got it right. If you know what your display uses, if you have a special display and it uses a particular type of lighting, select it there. I'm not going to calibrate this particular monitor here because, as I say, there is no point whatsoever in doing it with the Calibrite software. The Calibrite software, like the data color software as well, if you were to use that, does not set the hardware, and the whole point of getting a high-end monitor like this is the hardware calibration and the Adobe 98 gamut. That's yeah, but it's the hardware calibration which is important on something like this. So I'm talking about monitors that you can set on this. Remember, I can calibrate this using this sensor using the BenQ software. So you don't have to use the Calibrite or X-Rite software with a Calibrite sensor. So it's for that. But anyway, we've got that. I'm going to go for the photo preset. Seems reasonable since I'm doing photography with this. Ready to measure using that. And this is an updated version of the software compared to the old X-Rite software. And this is somewhat more intuitive in that it shows you various settings. So you can see along the top here that it's going to set it to D65 or 6500K. Now, the D65 is not the same as 6500K, but for setting your monitors, they're pretty much the same. It's going to set it quite bright at 120 candelas per square meter, and it's going to use other settings, all the standard settings, gamma 2.2 and everything like that. So we'll have start measurement. Now, first of all, it wants to know how I adjust brightness. Now, all you can do with this particular Mac here is just adjust the brightness. There's nothing fancy on it. Far more settings and things on that controllable on a monitor like this. Consider this as like a very basic monitor. This is a good quality and hence more expensive monitor. So I'm just going to have that for brightness settings. We're going to go like that. Now, I need to take the diffusing filter here off, put it round. I need to pull the counterbalance weight back a bit, put it there, and put it on the screen. Now there's a felt covering of it so it won't damage screens, but do be careful if you've got a screen that's got a particular coating on it, that you are careful about doing this bit and don't mark your screen. Tilting the screen backwards a bit will just make sure that it rests flat on there, and there's a sort of example there. So all I need to do is get it to, it's now going to do some measurements. Steps through various colours here, runs through different colours. Once it's done all of those, and the principle this thing works on is that it sends particular colours to the screen. It knows what colours, the software knows what colours it has sent to the screen, so hence the green there. The device measures the light that comes off the screen. Now, you know what colour it should be. You know what colour has been measured. You repeat that over a range of colours and greys, and then you feed that into some fairly complex calculations, and out comes a profile. Now, profiling calibration, while it's doing this, just a quick clarification of it. Profiling is measuring the characteristics of the screen. So that is, what is pure red, what is pure green, what is pure blue, how bright can the screen go, how dark can the screen go. That's the profiling of the screen, measures the screen characteristics, measures all sorts of things, but that's profiling. Calibration is then setting the screen to a known standard. So you can profile it, and that doesn't help as part of the process, but the calibration is saying, right, I want to calibrate this screen to a particular brightness. I want to calibrate it to a particular color range, also some characteristics of the screen. So the calibration is what tells you where you set the screen to how you want it. So in this case, it's going to be D65 in the screen here when I calibrated it. And this one has multiple calibrations I can switch between using that little control puck down the bottom here. So I can change this. This isn't permanently stuck at 4000K. I can change it, and I've got other settings available on this when I use this for demos and the likes. But that's calibration. Calibration is knowing what it's set to. Profiling just gives the characteristics of it. The two are used together by the colour management system on your computer, whether it's Mac, whether it's Windows. They essentially do the same thing. And this is what produces good looking colour. Notice I say good looking colour. When you calibrate your screen, profile and calibrate your screen, what you're doing is setting that screen to a known standard and getting it as good as you can. That does not mean that two calibrated profiled screens to the same settings will even look the same, because the characteristics of the screens are different. If you were using this, if this was a far faster machine and was driving this, and I was using this for editing and had the two screens together, you put all your effort into getting the best screen looking right, then you may want to tinker with settings to try and get this to look similar to this. You do not want to match this to this, you want to try and match this to this. But if they're different technologies, they're different settings, it may not be that easy to actually get a precise match. Even monitors which are from the same manufacturer may look slightly different. Remember, much as in printer profiling doesn't make every single print on every single different type of paper look the same, it just allows you to produce things more reliably Same goes with this. So you're limited by the capabilities of the monitor here and here. The calibration profiling, that helps you get where you want to get, but don't think of these things as absolutes. So it's done this. Please remove your device from the display, and we'll just put that back. It should be happy with that. I will click on next. There are the coloured patches. There are the coloured patches. Actually, this is a combination of the coloured patches which were displayed and the coloured patches as measured. There's not usually that much of a difference on this. Now, I've left this at D65, set at its native setting, so it's out of the box setting, or it's out of the box setting quite some years ago. So I will hope to see some difference. But anyway, we'll just click on next, and it will allow me to create the profile. Now, I can have a profile reminder if I like, and tell me in 4 weeks' time that I need to reprofile it. Given the quality of this screen and things, I really don't care. The only time I ever profile this and calibrate and profile this one is when I decide that, yeah, I've changed something and I need to reset it. Normally, I'm not interested in this at all. This is not used for serious work. My serious work, I make recalibrate things every month or so, maybe even every few months. The screen on here only gets calibrated when I'm testing new equipment on it. So we'll get rid of that reminder there, and we will change that to none, because I'm not particularly interested. It lets you give a name to your profile. Now, on a machine like this, that profile, when you select it in the monitor's settings, will set everything for it. It will just reproduce the settings here. So I'm going to set it just says iMac and it has the date on it. There's no reason to keep all your old profiles. They don't actually serve any purpose. So yeah, this allows you to, because it gives you dates on them. Now, I keep several profiles on this because, as I said, I've set this up for use with video at a very low color temperature at 4000. Likewise with this one here. But anyway, we will save that, and it will now do its processing of all those patch readings, and it will make the profile. There we go. It's made the profile. Now, I've got before and after images here. So it says I can switch between them. I'm not sure how you do. There we go, before. So there is the monitor, and I'm going to readjust the white balance here to make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing on the screen. Because remember, as I said, the room here is about 4000. I've set this to 6500 or D65. So really, I want to try and show on the video here the differences. Very difficult to show subtleties of color management on video without a lot of work, and somewhat more expensive equipment than I possess. So we've got the test image here. That is the before, and there's the after. Now it actually looks a bit punchier in the before one than the after. Don't necessarily expect to see an improvement if there's been much of a change, because you will have been used to the old settings. Do what it says here and use that. Now, there's another image that looks very familiar. I'm sure I've been here recently. There we go. Changes the contrast. Change the settings back to the after resetting. And it's got several other test images here, before and after ones you can have a look at. So you can add your own ones as well. So exit that. That's it. That's all you need to do. Now, I can remeasure it. I can run a validation on it, which will give me a whole load of characteristics of the monitor, tell me various numbers and things. But unless you have a use for those numbers, they're mostly there for people who like fiddling with stuff and looking at tables of numbers. For them to truly mean anything, you need to know why why these numbers are relevant. And I'm going to say that for most people, and I'll include myself on this in this instance, the validation stuff here is of no use whatsoever. It might be useful if you think the monitor has a fault or something like that, but even then you're not guaranteed to pick it up. I'm going to say, stuff like that is for much more critical uses than I and most people I know will use it. Now, I do know people who work in contract proofing, and much higher end graphic studios do much higher end color management stuff than I do, to which all these figures are of use. But I'm going to say to most people, and certainly most photographers I know, the numbers are there for if you're curious about them, but not much else. And they also look good if you do a review, so you can put a chart of numbers in it, because lots of numbers always impress in reviews, even though they're usually meaningless. Paper reviews particularly for that. But anyway, that's it. That's all you need to do it. It's taken, you know, a few minutes to do. I don't need to do it again. Don't leave the device attached. Fortunately, it has a little carrying bag for it, so this will go back in the bag and go back in one of my drawers where I keep all the assorted colour management kit. It just works. It does everything I need, and there you go. I can't really test this on its high brightness stuff because I do not own an ultra high brightness screen. I have set one up on it with an earlier version of this before, and it worked just as with anything else. But yeah, this is pretty simple stuff. There is no need for any sort of step-by-step guide for this. It's all explained here. Yeah, it is pretty simple. This software, by the way, will at some point, and you can see the settings here where it says printer and things like that, this software will at some point support making paper profiles with the likes of the Color Checker Studio. That's the old Color Monkey and i1 Studio device, but not yet at this version here. So keep note of what Calibrite are producing if you do paper profiling, because when it does support things like this, I'll be coming back and I'll do a more detailed review looking at creating your own printer profiles. But anyway, that's it. Yeah, not much to it really. It just works, which is ideal really. So thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, please do let me know. Please subscribe to the channel if you're interested in this stuff, and then you'll get notes of when I bring out new stuff. But thanks for watching.